actually is annoying.
Feels weird, it doesn't feel right.
Because sometimes maybe I will say bad.
In my mind, if somebody gives you free money, then you take it.
But a bit surprised.
Eat this one as well.
Try this one.
I'm really impressed by the way that people go with money.
You should do something because
tips once, but then people was no, like panicking.
so go Korea.
I agree with this because it actually is annoying having to tip people. Like, I already paid for my food. Why must I throw a little extra money to, tell you that you did a good job? So I prefer no tipping culture.
Well, for me, in New Zealand, we do not tip, so I'm very used to it, and I think it's very good. When I go to New York and I have to tip, it feels weird. It doesn't feel right, but I know you'd be different.
No, I think it's a good thing. I'm used to it in the States, but I don't think tipping should be, mandatory.
In America, you tip every time. Always tip. Even when maybe you don't think they need the tip, but always tip.
I'm glad that you don't need to tipping in Korea. Yeah.
We like no tip.
Yes, in the restaurant, yes. And in Korea I lived 3 years and I think it's so good because sometimes, maybe I will say bad, I'm so sorry Ukrainian and European people. Sometimes you can go to a restaurant like you're young and you're student and you don't have a lot of money, and when you work at like service person, your salary like it is cheapest. So I work it, so I know because salary really like low, and sometimes the service people really after like angry little, like why people just don't stay like this cheapers or something like this. But if we don't have enough money and like I have today money only for food and I can't stay this money, we feeling a lot of apologize and we're like, oh my god, I'm so sorry, because after this service person will be little angry maybe. In Ukraine it's our choice, yes, but if small it's not good. Like 10%, yes, 10%, so I think it's good. I don't know about restaurant system in Korea, how big salary in service person, but I hope it's enough.
I was very surprised by that because in my mind, if somebody gives you free money, then you take it. So I was very surprised the first time we tried to tip somebody and they said no thank you and wouldn't accept it. It was very surprising. I think it's nice that it's not expected, that you don't have to if you don't want to. I think it's strange that you can't tip if you want to. Like if someone's very nice to you and you want to say thank you, then I don't know how to do that other than money. And to say thank you. Yeah, if someone's extra kind to you. But everybody in Korea so far has been very kind. So yeah, it's really nice.
Usually when we go to the restaurant in France, we leave a tip for the people who serve us. Here, people told me that it wasn't really good to do that because it was not polite. So I was a bit surprised, but yeah, never mind. I mean, it's more money for me and less for him. So I'm okay with that. But a bit surprised. A bit of surprise at first because giving money to someone is being kind, and not taking the money. I mean, I prefer someone who's taking my money because I'm happy and I believe that he deserves it. But if he don't want it, it's okay. I mean, his culture. I mean, Korean culture, so I respect Korean culture than to force my culture into another country.
I actually like it. I really like that there is no tip culture because I lived in Germany for 2.5 years, and there I had to tip every day if you are eating outside, but the food was already too expensive and then I had to tip. And I was also thinking that I had this responsibility to tip because people who were working in the restaurants didn't get paid enough, so I felt responsible of them as well. And at one point I didn't even eat outside, I was just eating at home. Especially as a student, it was really hard to tip big amount of money. So in Korea, I really enjoy that I don't really need to tip. I feel more safe and happy when I eat because you never know how much you have to tip. So I think it is more understanding. You already know how much you need to pay in order to eat, I don't know, one jjajangmyeon or something. I also like the fact that, for example, there's this banchan culture. You can always drink water for free. Actually, my father also said that this culture is amazing. The fact that you can drink water for free in the restaurants and you don't even need to pay more money. You don't need to tip.
Yemek yerken çok rahat hissettim. Sürekli böyle yemekleri, o pançanları dediğin gibi yemek kültürü çok güzeldi.
More giving. Eat this one as well, eat this one as well.
Try this one.
Yes, from heart. It was not like a business, but rather sharing food. They even gave extra small candies. So we felt really safe and happy, comfortable.
I love the fact that there's no tipping culture. We haven't experienced it yet, but worst experience was in the US where we were forced to tip. We didn't know the price of anything. We had to guess. Whereas,
Yeah, I like what you see is what you get.
Yeah.
Making it easy.
So go Korea.
So I think they should have tipping culture, but they do not have it. Sometimes you feel like you just have to tip because they are so nice and very polite. So, but you don't have it yet, so you kind of feel like you should do something because they were so nice to you. So I want to give them, but they do not accept it. So they should have tipping culture, right?
To be honest, in my country we do not have a tipping culture. Only when we go to a restaurant and we have people that's working hard for you, then sometimes we leave something because we know they're young and they can have like some extra money. But personally, I really love it that there's no tipping culture, because in some countries it's like a must. And I do believe that tipping should be something that is an extra. It's like earning that extra money. And I really like it. Korean people, they're very proud and they go work for their money and they know this is my money and this is for you. And I'm really impressed by the way that people go with money. They understand that it's actually it's hard to earn your money, so you need to earn it and you cannot expect that everybody give it to you. That's very impressive. I was before in Vietnam, Thailand, China. I was in other countries. I love it. I've been traveling the world before and I'm absolutely a big fan of a country that learn morals to the people. You go to your job, you should not expect that people give you free money. If you get it, of course, if they give it to you and you earn it and you worked hard for it, it should be good. But there should not be a tipping culture.
In Italy, we have half and half, so some is up to you, is up to your preference. So you can choose to tip if you really enjoy the service or the food. Otherwise, you can choose not to tip. I believe it's a sign of kindness and like you're being polite towards the service you got when you go outside to eat into a restaurant. In Korea, I didn't experience that, so yeah, it will be better, I guess, for first of all the economy, but also for improving the service of the restaurants and the quality. The people who work there, employees, feel better after having this kind of tip. They kind of feel motivated to work more maybe, or to come the next day to work. And it's also a sign of feedback. It tells you the restaurant or the bar knows if your job was well done, or maybe there should be some improvements. So that's a big difference I experienced from Italy and also from Germany, because I was in Germany. But
yes, for me it's better because in Spain it's similar. We pay only for we buy or we order. We don't put tips. Only if you want, but if not, obligate. And this is good for me. Because if not, I don't know how much I need to put.
우즈베키스탄은 팁 문화가 있어요. 대부분의 레스토랑 같은 데 가면 웨이터가 따로 있고 웨이터가 서빙해주면 그 팁을 주는 게 좋아요. 물론 안 줘도 되지만 주면 기분 좋겠죠. 자유롭게 주면 돼요. 근데 대부분의 사람들은 주는 것 같아요. 10달러면 한 1달러? 2달러 정도? 한 10% 정도 주면 될 것 같아요. 우즈벡에는 그런 게 있어요. 웨이터들이 돈을 월급보다 팁으로 많이 받는 거예요. 그래서 사람들도 그걸 알고 있어서 팁을 많이 주는 것 같아요. 미리 알고 있었어요. 팁 문화가 없는 거. 그래도 살짝 불편했죠. 처음에는 어색했는데 근데 이제는 너무 익숙해졌어요. 그래서 팁 주는 게 오히려 어색해요.
I think that's very nice because I didn't feel like burden to have to just leave some money. All those people was always nice. In everywhere we were, every restaurant we were, people was super nice with us, and we wanted to give some tips once, but then people was no, like panicking, and I was like, okay, maybe this is not okay. So I didn't left anything at the end. I mean, as a tourist and traveler, it's nice because I don't have to pay more, but sometimes could be nice also to give some extra money to people that is doing really good their job, right?
In Sydney, like in Australia, we don't have a tipping culture either, and I think that's how it should be. Well, it depends. In America, you don't really get paid as much, I think, but I guess in Australia, you get paid the normal amount, so I think no tipping is fair. I think no tipping is better. It's easier for us because when you don't have to tip, then you don't have to work as hard, because I feel like servers, when they have to work for a tip, then they push themselves out there more. And I think the responsibilities should be upon the employer to look after their employees, not on strangers, which is why I think no tipping is better.
Oh wow, I think that's very good. That's much better. In Canada you have to tip so much and it's you don't get any extra service, so I like this much better, yeah.
Yeah, we have a tipping culture in Russia, and I don't really like it because the employee just double burden customers to pay more. It's something you should do for your employers. So maybe this way Russian holders of a business to take a look on the Korean style, because I guess this not from the customer side but from the employer side, because I would like to be paid enough without tipping from the clients, because it depends on many factors like their mood, how I feel today, so erased from the culture. Yes, it's the way I want it to be in Russia.
In Peru, it's not a rule to leave some tips, but it's something that you will do if you want to be nice. It is free, but if you don't leave it, then it could be a little bit rude maybe. It would be nice if you do it.